When Prince William opened the sealed medical file, his world came to a halt. The woman he loved, the mother of his children, had kept a truth so devastating that even the palace doctors were forbidden to reveal it until now. What had been buried for years suddenly came to light, and nothing would ever be the same. The document arrived quietly, slipped into a leather folder during what was meant to be a routine health update briefing. William had just finished discussing King Charles's latest condition when the lead royal physician paused, hesitated, and said softly, "There's something else, sir." A suffocating silence filled the room as William flipped through the pages, confusion giving way to disbelief. Medical terms he barely understood were underlined, time-stamped, and flagged, all under the name Catherine Elizabeth Middleton. The file revealed a decade-long trail of appointments, test results, and internal memos, most of which had never been disclosed to him. Some dates matched moments in their life he remembered vividly, while others did not, a detail that only heightened his alarm. Catherine, always composed under pressure, did not deny what was in the folder when William confronted her that evening. Her voice was calm, almost unnaturally so, as if she had anticipated this moment. "I hoped it would never come to this. But if it has, you deserve to know." Behind the polished walls of the palace, a storm was quietly brewing, and several of the physicians listed in the documents were no longer on staff. One physician had died, another retired early, and a third had left the UK entirely. When aides tried to verify the authenticity of the notes, they were met with evasive answers and broken communication chains, signaling that something was being intentionally buried. Outside the palace gates, the world remained largely unaware, but the first ripples had already begun. A well-placed journalist hinted in a morning column at a classified royal health issue that could reshape succession norms, and that alone set speculation ablaze across social media. Was it Charles, William, or Catherine? Within the palace walls, however, whispers were far more precise. A genetic revelation, something no one was supposed to know, not even William. The fact that he had been kept in the dark indicated this was no ordinary medical matter. This was about legacy, bloodlines, and the unspoken rule that has guided the monarchy for centuries. The crown must never be stained by uncertainty. For over a decade, Catherine had silently borne a private burden, stoic and alone. And now the palace scrambled to explain why a future queen's health had been hidden and why certain truths had been redacted from official records. The signs had always been there, but no one dared question them. Catherine, long praised for her grace under pressure, her poise during public engagements, and her uncanny ability to remain composed amid royal chaos, had quietly endured fainting spells during ceremonies, unannounced late-night hospital visits, and sudden disappearances that the press was instructed to ignore. Palace aides and palace officials had meticulously controlled the narrative, labeling every incident a routine checkup, a minor ailment, or nothing of concern, stamping out speculation before it could ignite. The truth, however, was far more complicated and fragile, spanning several critical years, particularly during the births of George, Charlotte, and Louis. Catherine's royal engagements would suddenly vanish from the schedule, with the official explanation always the same. She was spending quality time with the children. But those close to the inner circle now confirm that during these periods, Catherine was often confined to her private quarters under intensive medical supervision. At one point, a renowned London-based specialist brought in to oversee her treatment abruptly left the palace, citing irreconcilable ethical concerns in his resignation letter. His file was missing from the documents leaked to William, leaving a redacted hole in the timeline. William had noticed the signs: her sudden exhaustion, the hollow look in her eyes after certain treatments, and the way she carefully avoided questions about her checkups, always reassuring him with a calm smile. "It's nothing we can't handle." He wanted to believe her, needed to believe her, because the alternative was too terrifying. That fragile illusion shattered when the sealed documents arrived. Page after page of coded diagnoses, confidential memos, and internal warnings. The weight of it broke him. Sources say William disappeared from public view for 2 days, speaking to no one but his children, who sensed something was profoundly wrong. But the heart of the crisis lay in a handwritten letter found among old documents, written by Catherine on her personal stationery. In it, she confessed her fears not only of the illness itself, but of the palace's reaction if the truth surfaced. "I am not ashamed of my pain," she wrote. "I am ashamed of the silence I was forced into." The palace, for all its grandeur, had buried more than just symptoms. It had buried a woman suffering to protect an image. That choice, made long ago, now threatened to unravel everything. Yet the true bombshell was not Catherine's illness, it was what lay hidden deeper in the files. A quietly updated DNA report implicating someone else entirely. What initially appeared as a routine update of genetic markers during Catherine's annual review was, in fact, a revelation with profound consequences, explaining why it had been buried and why William had been kept completely in the dark. Something didn't add up. A single page, flagged by an off-site laboratory overseas, carried a stark annotation in bold. Inconsistency detected. Cross-reference required with immediate family. Clinically cold. That sentence would become the crack that threatened to unravel the royal facade. The results came from a consultation Catherine had quietly undergone at a private clinic abroad, far from public attention, and seemingly without full palace oversight. Intended as part of a routine preventative screening, the consultation revealed a genetic mismatch when foreign specialists ran Catherine's profile against standard protocols. Palace doctors were alerted immediately and sent an urgent request for clarification. What they received back was a digital report suggesting an anomaly not directly tied to Catherine, but to someone genetically linked to her, a close family member, who, according to palace records, should have been a confirmed match. It wasn't. The internal commotion that followed never reached the tabloids. It was far too sensitive. Legal advisors were called in, internal memos were classified, and whispers circulated of either a clerical error or something far worse. The term non-match appeared repeatedly in internal notes, circled, annotated with question marks, and signed off at the highest levels. In this context, it was explosive, hinting that Catherine's biology might not align with someone else in the way the palace had long assumed. Was it a sibling, a parent, or more controversially a child? The implications sent shivers through the monarchy's tightest circle. By now, William had progressed from confusion to suspicion, and finally to quiet fury. He demanded an emergency meeting with the Queen's former medical advisor, a man dismissed years earlier under mysterious circumstances, who reportedly revealed that he had flagged this very inconsistency over a decade ago, but had been warned not to pursue it further. It was handled, the advisor said, though by whom remained unclear. Now William saw it all for himself, laid bare on paper. The anomaly was real. Extraordinary measures had been taken to hide it, files moved, records rewritten, digital logs erased. But even in a palace built on secrets, the truth leaves a trace. And in those traces lay something far more unsettling than anyone had anticipated. This wasn't just about Catherine. The DNA anomaly pointed to a relationship altered. Whether by science or deception, someone was not who they claimed to be. As questions swirled around genetics, heritage, and secrecy, one unspoken theory emerged, the only one that could explain everything. Was Prince Louis truly William's biological son? Or had an unspoken secret haunted Catherine since his birth? Leaked test results hinted at an unthinkable reality, and suddenly, even the royal succession was in question. One report stood out above all others. Labeled private, no circulation, and marked with 3 palace security classifications, it contained a single phrase that sent shockwaves through the inner circle. Inconsistent paternal markers detected. Subject, Prince Louis. Initially, palace officials dismissed it as a technical error, but a deeper forensic analysis, commissioned years earlier and deliberately suppressed, confirmed the findings. The inconsistencies were unmistakable. This revelation cast a haunting light on Catherine's months following Louis's birth. While the world celebrated another royal heir, she vanished from public view, citing exhaustion and postnatal recovery. Palace insiders now suggest those months were marked by something far more profound. An emotional breakdown so severe she reportedly refused to see anyone outside her medical team. At the time, it had been framed as self-care, but the lost months now take on a darker significance. Behind closed doors, aides quietly confirmed what had long been suspected but never proven. A paternity test had been conducted just weeks after Louis's birth. Not ordered by William, nor sanctioned by the family, it was initiated by a senior advisor under direct orders from the legal team, and the results were locked away in a secure vault. Legal attempts to bury the truth began almost immediately, with birth records, medical entries, and genetic confirmations sealed under special royal security provisions. Internal access required written clearance. One aide requesting access was abruptly transferred, another resigned without explanation. When William was finally presented with the findings, his response was reportedly restrained yet chilling. "I need time. I need truth." He read the full report twice in silence, walked the grounds of Windsor alone with fists clenched and lips trembling, And when he returned, he did not confront Catherine, but simply asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" Her reply remains known only to them. Amid the chaos, a new voice entered the fray. Queen Camilla, in a private conversation overheard by staff, reportedly remarked, "Some bloodlines aren't as blue as we thought." Whether intended as a cruel jab or grim acknowledgement, her words quickly circulated among palace insiders. Some say Charles reprimanded her, others that he remained silent. But the tension rippled through the monarchy, hinting at a truth that could alter everything. The silence surrounding the revelations didn't stop with Prince Louis. The anomaly pointed to a far more orchestrated cover-up, with someone inside the palace determined to keep it buried. Questions mounted. Why had palace doctors redacted key files, and who authorized the blackout of Catherine's full medical history? As the paper trail emerged, so did the name of a royal official with everything to lose and everything to hide. What began as whispers escalated into a coordinated investigation behind closed doors. William, now too deep into the storm to turn back, demanded access to internal medical archives, only to encounter obstruction instead of clarity. Dates didn't match, doctors' signatures were missing, and key assessments, particularly those tied to the days after Prince Louis's birth, were blank or blacked out entirely, redacted page after page, as if Catherine had ceased to exist during the most critical moments of her health crisis. A secret directive had been issued, revealing the true face of royal damage control. The palace protocol team, usually responsible for managing public appearances and ceremonial conduct, was implicated in an entirely different operation: the alteration of internal medical records. Several documents showed subtle discrepancies, headers changed, treatment details vague, timestamps misaligned. It wasn't an error, it was a cleanup. At the center of it all was a classified dossier, labeled Project Dove, signed off by a senior palace official absent from public view for years. The file outlined a step-by-step protocol for containing medical discrepancies that could threaten the crown or its succession, including silencing internal leaks, rerouting media inquiries, and managing private threats against external physicians. One such physician, a respected specialist from Geneva, had been approached privately after Louis's birth. After submitting her findings, she abruptly resigned and returned to Switzerland. Rumors soon emerged of a blackmail attempt. Redact her report or face professional ruin. She chose silence. When William confronted a longtime advisor, who had served both his grandmother and father, the exchange was brief but seismic. "You were supposed to protect her," William reportedly said. "I was protecting the future of the monarchy," came the chilling reply, words that marked a fracture of trust that would never heal. Digging deeper, William's team uncovered transactional records linking a palace fund to an off-the-books clinic abroad. A six-figure transfer, labeled a consultation honorarium, corresponded to no officially recorded appointment. The clinic, based in the Caribbean, was known for discreet fertility treatments and raised even more questions about what had been hidden, who had orchestrated it, and how far the palace was willing to go to protect its image. The operation was cloaked in ironclad confidentiality, and as the pieces came together, it became clear that this machine had been built not for healing, but for hiding. The scale was staggering. It wasn't a momentary lapse in ethics, but a decades-long strategy designed to preserve image at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing truth, transparency, and the very people the institution claimed to protect. The more William uncovered, the more he realized this wasn't just about Catherine. Someone had orchestrated a web of secrecy spanning decades, and the next revelation proved it. Hidden under lock and key was Catherine's journal, unearthed during a frantic search through the couple's private belongings. A royal aide, sorting through archival trunks, discovered a small leather-bound book with no title, no crest, just worn edges and a golden clasp. Inside, delicate handwriting spoke louder than any public statement ever could. The entries began with joy, anxiety, and wonder from her first pregnancy. But as they approached the time leading up to Louis's birth, the tone shifted. Excitement mixed with doubt, guilt, and fear. Catherine wrote about a decision made under pressure, a medical procedure she had agreed to without being fully informed, and a consultation months before Louis's conception involving fertility assistance, stored genetic material, and an anonymous safeguard in case William's DNA could not be used during a politically sensitive time. One passage, circled in faint blue ink, stood out. "If something's wrong, if Louis isn't his, it will break everything. But I swear I never betrayed him. Not in the way they'll think." Her greatest fear wasn't illness or scandal, it was William walking away. She repeatedly returned to the same thought. He must never think she had lied. She only followed advice. She only tried to protect their future. These weren't the words of someone plotting deception. They were the cries of a woman trapped in a system that treated truth as a threat. Silence, she realized, was the only way to maintain the little control she had left. And perhaps the most heart-wrenching lines came near the end, where the depth of her fear and love became painfully clear. The last entry in Catherine's journal was perhaps the most haunting of all. If he ever reads this, it means the world is already on fire. But even if everything crumbles, I need him to know I loved him more than I loved my place in this family. When William finally read those words, he reportedly wept not quiet, contained grief, but the kind of breaking cry that comes after years of holding back, of striving to be strong while the foundations of everything you believe in collapse. Staff later found him alone in the private library for hours, the journal open on his lap, head bowed. That moment became a turning point. No longer was this about protocol, succession, or scandal. It was about two people bound by love and devastated by the choices forced upon them. Yet while William grappled with Catherine's emotional burden, the palace prepared to confront the public with a shock that defied centuries of royal tradition. With Prince Louis's legitimacy in question, the line of succession teetered on precarious ground. Constitutional advisors were summoned, legal experts briefed, and behind closed doors, King Charles faced a decision that could fracture the monarchy itself. The British monarchy, long resting on the unshakable pillars of bloodline and inherited lineage, now wavered under a single DNA irregularity. If Louis could not be confirmed as William's biological heir, centuries of succession rules were under threat. Charles was thrust into a constitutional maelstrom. Advisors warned that silence was no longer an option. Leaks were mounting, insiders whispered of legitimacy concerns, and even Parliament murmured quietly behind closed doors, preparing for the unthinkable. Pressure grew to issue a public statement, to reaffirm Louis's position, or at least acknowledge an internal review. But Charles hesitated, not from apathy, but from fear one misstep could spark a crisis that went beyond scandal, threatening the monarchy's very purpose. In the shadows, contingency plans were drafted. A provisional heir plan suggested Louis quietly step aside in the succession line, with Charlotte advanced not as punishment, but as a safeguard for the crown. William refused. Unwavering, he declared privately, "Louis is mine, regardless of what those pages say. He is my son in every way that matters." Yet even as his voice carried conviction, his inner circle feared the storm had only just begun. Then, as if fate had one final twist, a letter resurfaced, a sealed note penned decades earlier by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, filed among personal predictions and private reflections hinting at truths that might reshape everything once again. Among the Queen Mother's reflections, one line chilled all who read it. There may come a time when blood alone cannot determine who is fit to rule. The heart must weigh heavier than heritage. Its discovery felt almost prophetic, as if she had sensed that the future would challenge the very order she had spent a lifetime protecting. Just when the crisis seemed to have peaked, Catherine stepped forward to reclaim control of the narrative. For the first time in years, she addressed the world not as a princess, but as a mother, a woman, and a fighter. Her voice cracked with emotion, but her message was unwavering. What she revealed shocked the world and restored the hearts of many. After weeks of silence, leaks, and speculation, Catherine spoke in a live national address broadcast across the UK and streamed worldwide. She stood not behind the traditional podium of royalty, but at the edge of vulnerability, allowing the carefully rehearsed walls of monarchy to give way to raw humanity. She began not with protocol, but with confession, acknowledging the whirlwind of speculation, the pain it had caused, and the silence that had haunted her. In trembling yet clear words, she admitted undergoing a complex fertility procedure years ago, recommended during a period of emotional and political instability. "I trusted the doctors. I trusted the advice. And I did what I believed was best to preserve our family," she said. Catherine did not shy away from the confusion surrounding Prince Louis. She neither denied the anomaly nor allowed it to become a weapon. "Louis is my son. He is William's son. Not just by birth, but by every heartbeat, every sleepless night, every moment of love we've given him." Her tone sharpened as she addressed the vitriol and insinuations surrounding her youngest child, calling them cruel distractions from what truly matters. Then came the words no one expected, but everyone needed. "We are not perfect. We are not untouched by human error, by science, or by the choices we've had to make. But we are a family, and we stand together." William appeared at her side, eyes red, face resolute. He spoke no words. His presence alone answered every rumor. The image swept across the world not for its regality, but for its humanity. Within minutes, public opinion shifted. Social media overflowed with support. Headlines softened, and journalists who had spent weeks speculating praised her courage. A global wave of empathy surged, transcending monarchy to touch something universally human: the desire to protect those we love from judgment. Catherine had done what no royal crisis manager could. She had transformed scandal into a statement not of defense, but of dignity. By doing so, Catherine didn't just shield her son, she reshaped the public's understanding of strength. Yet even as the storm settled publicly, one final twist awaited behind palace doors, one with the power to shake the monarchy again. In a private vault beneath Windsor, a document signed years ago by King Charles confirmed the unthinkable. He had known Catherine's truth long before the wedding, and his silence had been both strategic and deeply personal. The revelation didn't come through leaks or confession, but an internal audit triggered by Catherine's public address. A clerk cross-referencing old files stumbled upon correspondences dated 2010, 2 years before William and Catherine's wedding, deliberately filed in a monarch-only archive reserved for state secrets and sensitive personal affairs. Among the pages was a confidential Royal Medical Office briefing addressed directly to then Prince Charles, outlining early concerns about Catherine's reproductive health, citing conditions that could complicate fertility and raise questions of hereditary consistency in future children. Senior advisors had concluded with a stark recommendation: we strongly urge consideration of postponing or reconsidering the engagement until further medical clarity is achieved. Charles's response, penned in the margins, was simple: let the marriage proceed. Beneath it, a sealed letter to Queen Elizabeth revealed his reasoning. He acknowledged the risks, but defended his choice. The institution has withstood scandal, but it may not survive a drought of hope. William has chosen a woman beloved by the people. In Catherine, we find not flaw, but strength. He had gambled on public trust, on image, and on Catherine's place in the monarchy, aware of what public adoration had done for Diana and its absence for Camilla. Charles wasn't merely protecting the monarchy, he was shaping it, modernizing it, even if it meant concealing truths that could later unravel everything. When William discovered that his father had known all along, his reaction was unlike anything seen in the palace. Not rage, not betrayal, but devastation. Sitting in silence for over an hour, he finally spoke, voice heavy. You chose for me, and in doing so, you stole my right to choose for myself. Charles offered no denial, only a single handwritten note dated weeks after Louis's birth. Some truths protect the crown, others protect the heart. I chose the latter, and I pray one day you'll understand. It was neither apology nor justification, but an acknowledgement of the immense burden they all carried: the price of legacy, control, and secrets masquerading as stability. The monarchy had always been built on preserving an image, but its survival now depended on embracing the flawed humanity within its walls. In the end, the truth that nearly destroyed a family became the very force that held it together, redefining what it means to be royal in the modern age.